Here we have a relatively large and heavy Jeep. This Jeep has 72-inch wide axles because it has a high center of gravity. We wanted to keep it stable. It's got a Dana 80 and a Dana 60, metal cloak game changer suspension, 6-pack shocks, a lot of heavy duty stuff. And you ask, what's going to haul all this weight with ease? Well, how about the LT4? This Jeep has a LT4 putting out close to 700 horsepower. This is going to be the first time it's out of the shop, so we're going to go for a little drive. Here we have a relatively large water to air intercooler, and we are running the factory LT4 intercooler pump, and it is controlled by the computer. So let's get in it and go for a little ride. As you guys can see, this is a black Jeep and we're in the desert and it's pretty hot out. So of course we've got our AC running. We've got our dual header radiator in this build. And let me show you the coolers that we have on the sides. This is a 23-inch long extruded aluminum finned oil cooler. So this cools the engine oil, and you can see we're using hydraulic hose and fittings that are properly crimped, similar to what you'd find on a tractor. On the other side, we've got a similar 23-inch cooler, but this is for our transmission fluid. So this is going to cool our ATF. And you might or might not be able to hear the Camaro SS fan, but even with the air conditioning on, it's just ticking over maybe 10-15%. For those of you that want to hear the LT4 crank up, here we go. Now remember, this has to turn on the low pressure pump that feeds the high pressure pump that then builds up a lot of fuel pressure, maybe in excess of 1,000 psi, and then the operating system allows it to start. So it's going to crank a little bit longer than the average gas motor. All right, let's go for our drive. So the first impression is just how mild it is. You would never know this engine has 700 horsepower. I mean, we're barely turning 500 RPM. I can hear a little bit of whine, very little. So besides being very mild, you can probably imagine that this engine has a lot of horsepower and torque it's really about. In fact, as heavy as this Jeep is with the 1-tons and 40s and roof racks and everything else, it feels very light. I've driven stock JKs with 32-inch tires that feel like they're under a lot more stress than this vehicle is. The nice thing about the 8 and the 10-speed transmission is having that extra gear diversity really helps with heavier Jeeps with larger tires. I will say that the lighter the Jeep is, the less important that is, but in something like this, it definitely comes into play. We're gonna head back to the shop, check some stuff out, and then go for a test drive in this LT4 JK. Stay tuned.